You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
And a warm welcome to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This is the show for the 15th of December 2016. It's our last episode for the year, and today we're going to talk about how all of life has now been revealed. We're going to talk about creating new realities. We're going to talk about the hopelessness and compassion wrapped around street children. We're going to listen to a brand new song which Nico has created for us and allowed us to play this evening. We're going to be discussing with our team member Michelle, and we're going to be listening to some audio from our fellow team member Diane. We have a chock-a-block show for you, and welcome to the show, Radio Belvaspata, South Africa, broadcasting live just east out of Johannesburg. We've had massive traffic issues this evening. All sorts of problems are going on. We'll talk about those as time permits. We've got some audio from Almin coming up about the creator and the dream, about the unreality of death. We're going to look at the gift of physicality, and we're going to go travel around the world a little bit as we do all of that. But first, let's work with the track Through the Seer's Eyes. It's Pacific Sunset, which we're going to play for you. And believe me, many of us are all standing on the brink of great holidays off to the coast. So it's very apt for us to play this particular track right today for you.
Pacific Sunset. On a militant quest, storm clouds in the west gather in ambush for the setting sun. But the sun is delayed, watching children play, unaware of the battle to come. The children go home. The sun, all alone, watches the sandcastles yield to the tide. Wending his weary way at the close of day, across the ocean where Leviathan whales reside. As he descends, he must first defend his title as King of the Sky. Cumulus armies in battle array challenge the sun with a lightning display. Assailed from all sides, he calls his allies. The grey whales come, but only one has the courage to challenge their might. With a power of mind unknown to humankind, the grey whale rolls over, turning the day to night.
And you were listening to the great Seer Almin there as she gave us the poem Pacific Sunset. Very close to our hearts today, but for most of us, Indian Ocean of some form, Atlantic Ocean of some form. The entire Gauteng region, for us, for our overseas listeners, is really the province in which we live, is basically closed down right now as everybody heads off down to the coast on our annual holidays. You're listening to me, Paul, your host for today's show on Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. We've got all sorts of beautiful things to talk about, but I'd like to ask you, did you read the cosmic mantra of the day and really go into it? It says, within each moment, the power of the ages is stored. Celebrate the moment, for it is the culmination of all that has gone before. Absolutely beautiful mantra, and we're going to be listening to the Master Diane in a little while as she gives us some audio input that she gave us earlier in the week. And when I said to her, Diane, did you see the cosmic mantra of today as against your audio input? She was greatly excited, and we couldn't believe the synchronicity of it all. Absolutely incredible. So there we go. Latest things that are coming up in Almeen Diary are very, very interesting for all of us as well. Almeen talks a little bit about what is going on in the world, and what we focus on creates our reality. And in the second half of the show, we'll be discussing a little bit about the things that we've learned this year, the insights and processes that we've all experienced. And that's going to give us some good insights. One of the things that Almeen has said once or twice that I've picked up here, and I see it's repeated again on Almeen Diary as of today and yesterday, the folly of man is that he says he searches for truths, but what he searches for is to affirm his already held belief systems. And the more I look at it, the more I can see where we're going with all of that particular aspect of it, and how important it is to understand the programming and belief systems that run each of our lives. And indeed, for me, all I have to do is look within myself all the time and see for myself what my responses are, what the belief systems are, what the needs are, and all that programming really comes to the fore so often. Almeen's also said, to go with that and beautifully connect to it, one cannot fill a cup that is already full. It is only by admitting that we don't know that the wonders of the universe reveal themselves to us. And I think Almeen's teachings are very, very clear. They're really about dissolving the enslaving belief systems and programs that we all carry from eons of time. And they've all become our comfort zones. They've become our jail cells. They've become who we are. They've become our identities. But at the end of the day, these things are trapping all of us and preventing us from ascending to a state of ongoing creation and changes in consciousness. And that is really one of the functions of humankind, is to change their consciousness to such a way that it's ever developing and ever working through inspiration, through understanding what this moment holds for us. And that mantra of the day, that within each moment the power of the age is stored. Celebrate the moment, for it is the culmination of all that has gone before. It's so incredibly powerful for me today as I sit and look at it, because yes, everything that has gone before has its perfection, has its role to play within our lives. And if we understand that and we have gratitude for it, then yesterday is gone, today is a mystery, and tomorrow is a gift. We need to look at all of that. So remembering that what we focus on creates our reality, always very, very important. And so much information in the media going around about this happening and that happening, and the aliens this and the aliens that. So we had an experience this week where a pilot or the cabin crew inside the cabin of a flight from Johannesburg to Cape Town had to report a UFO, an unseen or unknown green object, which flew right up past them and then plummeted down to Earth. And there was something like 1,000 feet a second it was flying. That was their estimate. And of course, the authorities then have now said that they have no idea what that is, and it remains a mystery. But this really follows on what we've been saying in the last few weeks, where the aliens are leaving the planet, etc., etc., whereas so much more mainstream media is trying to tell us that the aliens are here, and so often, let me just clarify what I'm saying, and so forth and so forth. So much more information coming out in terms of these TV, this media, social media, and people reacting to them. But Almeen now has reminded us very, very beautifully today in how to send questions to Almeen. And this is up on Almeen Diary, and then it links to lightworker.co website. And she's saying, or that we look at, remember what the question is, what we focus on creates our reality. And the comment on that is, please be sure you have internalized Almeen's message about the propaganda of the children, as she is not inclined to indulge the desire to empower grim scenarios perpetuated by both the mainstream and alternative media. And such an important point to understand in this work that we're all doing along with Almeen, not to get caught up in anything that takes away our particular interest, our focus on any particular thing, and that is available for you to listen to. So please go and listen to it. There's a link on Almeen Diary. It's called The Propaganda of the Children. If you're on lightworker.co.za, you will have already heard it. It is a class from August, so you need to maybe scroll back a little bit to get all of that. But absolutely fascinating. It's a 10-minute class by Almeen where she goes into the different aspects of the roles and reminds us what our particular roles are. And also says that, she had to think deep and hard and do a lot of soul searching before she could comment, that even if she had to do it, she'd have to do it herself, and that we should not get wrapped up in that which is holding us back and in belief systems and everything which just simply feeds into the affirmations that we are already searching for. And it's important for us to understand that Almeen is not teaching wisdom. Almeen is not teaching knowledge per se. What she's doing, she's awakening the ability within each one of us to dissolve that which can no longer function within humankind, and therefore consciousness begins to shift. And as you enter these new different states of resurrection, so we have incredible ways of experiencing new things and new processes. For me, incredibly exciting. And if I'm coming across a bit tongue-tied tonight, it's because I'm sitting here absolutely overwhelmed at the amazing amount of information that we get, the work that we get through the mystic and seer Almeen, and it is just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing. And even though, she had a stroke 2 years ago, into that particular, there was a whole lot of processes going on over there. How that didn't even stop her. I mean, she had to rest, but the work that started coming out after all that is so incredibly profound, and I'm truly, truly grateful for that experience. Excuse me. So there's been some comments coming up as well about this particular aspect, but what I'd like to do is first play an audio for you. It's from Almeen called Creator and the Dream.
Some of the things that we spoke about yesterday, I'm going to change today. The reason is that when we spoke them, what they were stair steps. And they were stair steps to bring us to the larger construct of today. But we couldn't get there without at least understanding those first few stairs. And so we made sort of a toy model of where it is we wanted to go, and now we have to discard the toy model to be able to climb further and go higher. And so we will go from there. My brothers and sisters, if we can go back to the beginning of creation, because yesterday I told you that you that is superimposed over all that is in this universe is your highest self. And we use that in order to be able to do that meditation to at least experience the allness of our universe. But of course that is not your higher self. Your highest self has to come from the very source of all that is, from outside of the dream. And Homecoming Tape 1, 2, and 3, really everybody in this class needs to listen to that, okay? If you don't have it, talk to Simon about it. Each tape is just an hour long, but it's a must. It is the conference calls that we've had that leads up to where we started out at the beginning of the weekend. And if you need to catch up on them, please do. They will fill in the bits and pieces for you. But we spoke often of coming from outside of the dream. And today I would like us to go into deeper understanding of what that means. Outside of the dream, where does the dream begin? What do we mean by the dream? And what I will do is I will explain this as best I can, and then I will give a little opportunity for you to either give a comment or a question, and then we will try and access it through our right brain by actually doing a meditation to be able to go into it. And I'm going to be very explicit because I know that some people are getting these in the form of tapes. I'm also going to, in revealing how the whole dream came about. And do you remember that the first thing that we said is that source, the awareness that simply was in a state of great peace, aware. That source reached outside of itself, so to speak. However, everything is inside of itself. It's the way that you have a sub-personality inside. Source reached outside of itself, shall we call it for the moment, to be able to extend itself, and in doing that, evolve the awareness that it had. Well, that extension outside of the self, so to speak, though we understand everything is within the awareness of the all, that extension is the dream. It is, let us assume, and I would actually like us to do that if we can fit everything in today, but I'd like you to daydream. You know, like there are things I have daydreamed about that I would like to do. I have always wanted to be a cook on a fishing vessel in Alaska. I've always wanted to be an archaeologist. I've always wanted to be an engine driver. I've always wanted to be a cook on a roundup with a wagon, a chuck wagon, you know. I've always wanted to do these things. Well, so the daydreams that I make are not outside of me, but they seem to be outside of me. Okay, that's the way that source, the original awareness, started to dream. And we're going to follow this dream.
And you're back in studio with myself, Paul. This is Radio Belvaspatar, South Africa's last show for 2016. And today we're talking about how everything stands revealed, how to create new realities, and understanding that what we focus on creates our reality. We were listening to an audio there, Creator and the Dream. Absolutely incredible as Almin explains the definitions of that process and how it all came into being. So I said last week that it feels like the inside of me is also on the outside. It sounds like a bit of a paradox, but I can see now that everything is so much more transparent within myself, and that all is absolutely being revealed slowly but surely. And I need to understand that my job or my role is to simply allow what is to be, and to be in that balance of activity and in silence at all times, and to learn to merge those particular aspects of it. So there's been an interesting experience here between me and Nico as well. And often we do things, and then when we discuss it and we decide, or we discover for ourselves that we're working on the same things, but maybe just coming in from a different perspective of it. And there's one thing I've been seeing more and more around us here in Benoni on the East Rand, east of Johannesburg, is the amount of street children that are developing more and more. And around my factory area down closer to town, there's a lot of street children there. That literally don't have anything. It was absolutely incredible just to watch all of them. So my earlier trainings in the yogas, in spirituality, and the path that I was following all those years ago have obviously left their own imprint and created belief systems and programmings for me. And I've always looked at these street children, so please bear with me as I describe this, and I'd like to hear perhaps if you could give us your comments, what you feel when you see these things. And I'm just coming from an open space at this moment without trying to judge any of this particular aspect. But when I look at these street children, there's a loss there. There's absolute, complete hopelessness within their eyes. Their eyes tell so much story. And as they stand next to your car, begging for money and making movements with their hand that I need food, and rubbing their tummies, that they're hungry, etc., etc. And I just have to try and look at the bigger picture all the time, and go beyond this feeling of compassion that I have been taught. And I begin to understand that the compassion that I'm feeling is actually just a belief or a program. It's not a true state of compassion where things would be seen differently. And that what I'm seeing now is the inner child so apparent for me. Really interesting concept as I look at them along the way. And I look at an inner child that is unable to see beyond their suffering along the way. Their ability to project self-pity is absolutely profound. And it just grabs at the heart the whole time. And then I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this and I'm going, but this is a trap. This is something that is an identity that has been created to create a trap to stop me from actually seeing the bigger pictures along the way. Because yes, you and I both know that everything isn't perfection 100% of the time, and there's never a moment where it isn't. And the only thing that we don't realize at times when we don't see the perfection is just our perspective needs to widen to encompass different things and encompass the perfection of things. And I just think it's a diversion by the ego manifesting into the physical. And I'm not saying that they don't exist. And I'm fully aware that the Sia Almin bakes for them, but she bakes for the sheer joy of being able to bake and present to people. And that's an ideal opportunity for her to go and do these things along the way. So this is really given me a great deal of things to think about, because it's easy to wind down your window and give money. But sometimes that money is just feeding them things that they're choosing to buy from, because there's been instances where food has been given to them and they actually go and throw the food away because they're using the money and whatever to buy glue and to buy drugs. And this has become apparent because I discovered that they were sleeping on the veranda areas or the flooring areas around the front of my factory during the evening times to get away from the rain. And when you go stand there, there's lots of syringes and obviously lots of cigarette butts and all sorts of things going on over there for themselves. And that is their addiction. And that addiction to suffering we've been speaking about on the show for so long now. And of course we're bringing up the subject of the inner child along with the other sub-personalities. So I've been identifying all of this and just saying, well, don't get trapped by the ego, by the diversion that is created by the ego. And then of course this week on Almin Diary, there's a short audio there which you can just go and download if you like on almindiary.com. And Almin discusses there about using the Merkaba and the ego and God consciousness and bringing that all together. And I'm just linking this whole particular discussion really with the aspects of the inner child and how the inner child has to release and work through a lot of things, because at the end of the day, the inner child is the center for all the rest of the sub-personalities and the family. And one thing that we need to realize, as Almin was saying in this message about the propaganda of the children, which is also an Almin Diary now, and she's talking about those different processes there, that we need to look at these things very, very carefully. And I'm just going, well, the propaganda of the children is such an apt title for this audio clip and for that short 10-minute class that Almin gives there. Because, as the children, if we're not careful, we can evolve into the state of self-pity and being trapped with this addiction, which is very, very apparent. And of course, we connected with a home for the refugees or the really the disadvantage on so many levels, an orphanage in Benoni called Kids Haven, and we support them by taking some students in and trying to allow them to develop. And for us, it's fascinating watching how one of them would actually stand up and do something, whereas the others really are so stuck that they refuse to do anything for themselves. So, if one or two can actually come up and do the difference and make the difference for themselves, then it's worthwhile. We're very, very happy. But what about the rest? And of course, we all have to take accountability for ourselves, and we have to be responsible for our own growth and awareness when opportunities come. And I'm just seeing the opportunities like we've got right now at this moment. When we look at the dream state, when we look at the fact that we are creative beings and we are working through the expressions of the infinite and creating states of oneness, we are really revealing so many different things. Absolutely fascinating. But I must say the eyes of the street child do haunt me. And then, as I was saying, the synchronicity of the work that Nico and I do on our own ways and our own perception was really incredible, because Nico comes 2 days ago and he says he's written a new song. And that song is called Straatkind, which for our foreign listeners, really translated in English, means street child. And he's allowed us then to play this particular song tonight as a first off. So we're going to be listening to that towards the end of the show. But isn't that profoundly beautiful? And I must say the words are really incredible. And for our local listeners who understand the Afrikaans language will understand the words, but I know that internationally everybody will get the connection and the emotion that he's bringing. And he talks about their eyes, he talks about the way they do things and that they have nothing. He talks about the suffering through it, but it is quite an incredible, uplifting song at the same time. So that is his gift to the world at this moment today, and we'll be closing off with that in a little while. So yeah, talent unbounded everywhere here. Street children, old teachings, ego, God, Merkaba, all this work that we're going through. What I'd like to do now is just talk a little bit about the aspects of another belief system that we work with, and that is death, life and death. And this is really incredible to look at. It is a very, very deep belief system that is, if we are born, then we must die. And Al-Amin has talked about being trapped in the rapture of death. And when you look in mainstream religions, what happens there is, there's so much in those particular teachings in certain religions where they go and literally are people just waiting to die to get into the rapture of death, that they believe that is the only thing that they can actually achieve. And of course now Al-Amin will come and dissolve a lot of those belief systems and take us way beyond all of that. So what I'd like us to do right now is listen to 2 tracks by Al-Amin. One is called The Gift of Physicality, and the second track is called The Unreality of Death, and we'll play them back to back. So we'll have about 10 minutes of those audios, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what Rahir has seen, and he's talking about All Stands Revealed, and we'll talk a little bit about Al-Amin's upcoming things, processes, Al-Amin's upcoming things, Al-Amin's upcoming events at the year end. We'll be talking with Michelle, and we'll be listening to Diane, and also we've got Nico's song to close off. So please stay with us, and here we go with The Gift of Physicality and then The Unreality of Death.
So many light workers want to go home. They've come from higher spheres, they've come from other planetary systems, they've been star-seeded in here amongst humanity to make a difference. They just want to get the job done and go home. But they are missing the point. And perhaps it's time for us to look at the incredible value of being in physical form. Every being in the cosmos wants to be living on Earth right now. It is the place where the infinite Mother and Father themselves have come to live. They always have, because the Earth is Mother's footstool. It is Father's home. It is very clear by looking at the history given to us by the history keepers of the cosmos in the book The Gift of the Unicorns, that the Earth is the cradle of civilization, that she does not originate in this particular star system, but made her way here through a very perilous journey that is mapped out for us by these cosmic history keepers. So, the Earth itself is the parent. It is the original home of all creatures. There is, according to the Infinite Mother, a pedigree given in a library of all the star seeds and how they originally came from what the Andromedans call the Pa-Tau, the nobility of the cosmos. Who are those? Man. It is from man that originally, eons ago, when this planet was somewhere entirely different, that the rest of the star seeds were formed, the cradle of civilization. Then why is it that we feel so very lost at times in making our way through our life? Well, that too is for a very specific reason. And it is that we have what's called myopic vision. We can only see right what is in front of us. But that was deliberately made so because as the densest being in the cosmos, it was us that had to create a scenario in which the cosmos could ascend. We had to find the unknowable. We live on the edge of the densest levels of existence where the known and the unknown meets. As such, we were the ones that had to gain experiential knowledge. To do that, the focus is different. When I speak to the multiple beings that exist in the etheric realms, the very many different races, if you ask them if something is true, they can all either tell you yes it is or no it isn't. The issue, however, is that they do not ask the right questions. They do not question life. Man does. And therefore man pushes the boundaries of the cosmic consciousness beyond where it has been. They are the ones that gain the experiential knowledge. They might know there's a 2 and there's a 2. But it is man that finds out that the 2 and 2 put together creates a 4. And to do this takes a specific focus. And hence we only see what is before us. We have to feel what is behind these appearances. This is the place of glory, my beloved brothers and sisters. One can grow more on earth in 5 years than you can surely grow in 5,000 years, for instance, in another planetary system where there isn't so much density. What is density? Density is in physicality means that the old patterns change slowly. Even when the laws of existence change and all of the rest of the realms have immediately changed, physicality follows very slowly. That means it's denser. And so the density of physicality is what we chafe against. But it brings its rewards. It brings the depth of feeling. It brings the exquisite sensory perception. The joy of our hearts, the passion, and the fluid flow of emotions. These things are present nowhere else. We are so unique. We are Mother's prize gems of her creation. We are the microcosm of the macrocosm. We are the elite and the nobility, and we have been since the very beginning. Let's feel at home on earth. Let's forget the old teachings about how unworthy flesh is. According to Mother, all creation started from the physical. Death has been a very misunderstood concept. And a statement that I made in August of 2006 has added and compounded to the problem. In 2006, in the book The Ring of Truth, which was told that I had to write it because of the vast changes that happened in the cosmic laws that affect the nature of reality, I said that death as a reality had in fact been done away with. And of course, around us people continued to die. Let's take a look at the exact meaning of death and why, in August of 2006, the real part of death, if you will, was removed, making it optional. For eons of time, the cosmic seekers, the Naguals, the Toltecs, the seers, have said that death is a tumbling force. In fact, the Toltec Naguals called it the tumbler. And so, as they searched diligently to find out what it was and just how, perchance, one could slip by it, they noticed that it was grinding against what is called the luminous cocoon of man, causing a weakening, which could be called a loss of energy and then aging of the cocoon itself. Ultimately, that cocoon cracked, and when the luminous cocoon of man cracked right through, it caused death. The luminous cocoon of man was comprised of bodies, the etheric body, the emotional body, the mental body, and so forth, described in many of my books. And so, forming ultimately, for those with eyes to see into the subtler realms, a luminous cocoon or egg around the physical body, like Russian dolls stacked inside one another. It is against this that this tumbling force moved. But the tumbling force that gave such headaches to the old Toltec seers that they never could figure out what it was in fact nothing more than the movement of awareness. Up until that time, the awareness was in spiral form, moving in a big donut shape, in a tube torus. And it had a curve to it, an arc, and it moved outwards, and it had a spiraling of its rays itself. And so, as we described in Journey to the Heart of God, the awareness spirals,
created cyclical patterns in everyone's lives. Larger spirals and smaller spirals. We seem to encounter the same sort of things, but one level higher and then one level higher. In August of 2006, those spirals shattered into tiny, tiny bits. And the one sure thing that Toltecs knew about awareness, namely that it moved, ceased to be. It spread in tiny bits across the cosmos in an even manner. Well, at that point, there was nothing left to tumble, if you will, the luminous cocoon of man. Nothing left to cause the wear and tear. And death became optional. There is, however, a loss of soul force that happens when we oppose life. And immortality has much to do with fully cooperating with life, with flowing with the river that flows through our day. When we resist every little thing in our way, it leaks life force. When we lack life force, we also lack consciousness. And ultimately, soul force leaves. Where does it leave to? Well, this brings me to the final change of death. It used to be that our spirit world was located in a different realm, if you will. In the first months of 2008, that was changed. The spirit world and all higher levels came down into the physical, creating one level. However, why then do we not see departed loved ones? Because the frequency component is an octave higher. And when something vibrates at a higher frequency, ordinary vision cannot see them, and it makes them less dense. It might be to some a matter of semantics, but the point is, the spirit world has come among us. And whether we can see them or not, they are not so far removed anymore. And death has indeed become a purification rite for which there is no need if every day we do the deep, meaningful living that is required of a master, and if we cease to oppose life.
And you're back in studio with Radio Belvaspata South Africa. I'm your host, Paul, for tonight's episode of the 15th of December 2016. On Almeen Diary, there's been an interesting comment, really, where the description, what Regier gives, where he uncovered a ring in Washington, D.C., a pedophile ring, and how the information that he's been working with has now gone viral. And he talks about how New York Times tried to spin it as fake news, and then attempts to censor it by Facebook and Twitter, by the mainstream media. Very, very fascinating indeed. And Almeen says that it all started to unravel when she wrote the high magic principles of truth being revealed in the presence of absolute transparency and honesty. And she says the principle of high magic number 33, within the clarity of my presence, all stands revealed. So Regier asks her, is there anything else that she can share? And Almeen says that she hasn't looked deeper into it, but she was recently presented with a photo of a rotten apple that she interpreted as corruption in New York. All she knows is that the picture symbolizes a pedophile ring that extends to the highest echelons of U.S. government. Absolutely shocking, but of course we have to understand where all of this comes from and how it works. And if you go into the propaganda of the children audio, Almeen talks about how we are the actual government itself, and all these other governments are just proxies for a lot of other things and problems. So please do go and listen to the propaganda of the children. But I must say that what I have learned this year, as I said earlier on, is that it feels like the inside of me is also on the outside. And to be quite honest, I no longer know who I am, and I'm enjoying it. And to try to find myself creates big drops in my own awareness day by day. There's a freedom that's available in not knowing and not needing to know. yet also knowing that one is always fully supported. And that for me is the balance of working on understanding, is that we are absolutely fully supported all the time, and yet we do not create identities, as this creates aspects of separation consciousness. So on the line with us now is my fellow team member, Michelle. How are you, Michelle? Hello.
Very well, and you, Paul?
Oh, good. Thanks. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
I'm here.
Fantastic. So thanks for joining us tonight, Michelle. We're talking a little bit about and discussing what we've learned this year. And I think we talked earlier in the week and you've been thinking about it. So could I ask you to share with us what you think you've learned, or you felt that you've learned this year?
I will do that with pleasure, Paul. But before I go on to say what I think I've learned, I agree with your statement in the sense that I perhaps don't even know who I am anymore, and that's okay. But what I do know is that I'm fully present. So I don't really have to know very much. I just need to be fully present in the moment.
Ah.
So having said that, I think that for me, the beginning of the year was very much about learning to stand in my authentic self, to be myself, to actually start learning what it meant to be self-governing.
Yeah.
And that was challenging at the beginning because one sees everything as outside of oneself, the political system, the economic system, your job, your boss, your children, your friends, and everything you see outside of yourself. So to actually start really becoming into one's authentic self and actually adopting and beginning to grasp self-governance was a very big part of the beginning of the year. And that then flowed into that whole experience of, in a way, being androgynous, which when I went away for that weekend, and it was in that time that I really started learning about opposites.
Okay.
And where it seems that opposites began to dissolve for me. And that, yes, it was a very interesting experience. And I think that when I say that opposites began to dissolve, what I mean by that is that my whole life I've lived in a world of opposites. I've lived in a world of competition. I've lived in a world that said something was right and something was wrong. And you then had to take sides, and that then determined whether you flourished or whether you were killed, basically.
Right.
So those perpetual opposites that society has lived in, and even within my own mindset, even in my own makeup, I felt that everything was an opposite in terms of something being right, something being wrong. And then I learned that no, everything is right and everything is in its own perfection. Yeah. And in fact, we don't have to make anything right or wrong. So that was a big realization, and it's an ongoing thing, because the old system or the old belief system, in fact, it doesn't feel to be very deeply entrenched at this point in time. I'd be lying if I said that, because I do find myself today very easily being able to step out of judgment and not make anything right and not make anything wrong. So that was a big one for me. I think the other thing that really happened for me is that I really began to understand what it meant that we live in a matrix, and that the matrix has been false. And I had some experiences where I actually felt vibrational shifts that I could even see physically from time to time. And although this shook me quite deeply at the beginning, but again there was a reveal that yes, we have been caught in a matrix, and that matrix and that belief system is not who I am. And I would say that then led me to a point where I I started really accepting that I do create my own reality, and within that ability of creating my own reality, that whatever I want to see on my outside, I need to actually do the work on my inside in order to create that. And that's actually become a very big wow in terms of I don't have to accept anything that doesn't go into my reality anymore. And what I mean by that is that if something's in my life that I don't want, I'm the creator of my reality. I am the godlike being. I am into self-governance. So it's up to me to actually change whatever's happening in my external world. So I'm still working very hard on that one. But it's becoming easier, and it's also beginning to ripple out into, so there's me and my immediate environment, being work, being children, and all the rest of it, and how do I influence that? Yeah. But then also, how do I begin to influence the society that I live in, which includes those street children, and everything else that I see as wrong within my environment. I'm beginning to actually work on that on the inner side, as opposed to wanting to fix it and heal it on the outer level. So that in a nutshell would be some of the things that I think I've really learned this year, or I've begun to grasp and begun to make reality some of these concepts, as opposed to it just being theory. I'm beginning to actually see the practical application of it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible, Michelle. Really deep and heartfelt work, I think.
Yes. It wasn't a picnic, and I don't expect it to be a picnic. And I was listening to something from Almin this afternoon, where somebody wanted to, the question was about the person remaining in rapture. And Almin replied to say, to actually want to be in rapture means to not live. So, we're denying life by wanting to be in perhaps the rapture of the death throes, I'm not quite sure, or the death promises of the other world. But she definitely said something along the lines of it's to be in a rapturous state all the time is to actually deny life. And I think that's the truth, because it's the feelings that we get. I mean, often I feel very confused about Almin's work, and I have to fight with it, and I have to grapple with it, and I have to sometimes even do posts on our WhatsApp to say I'm not agreeing with what everybody else is saying. But I don't make myself wrong with that anymore, because that's what I need to go through in order to get out to the other side, where my understanding, not the understanding because I need to be right, but just so that I can begin to live that principle, as opposed to it just being a theory.
I think that's really the profound moment of awareness there, is that we're not just working with theory and wisdom, we're actually working with processes that create qualities within ourselves that ripple outwards, and therefore everything changes. But that work has to come from within, and we have to learn. I feel for me, myself, that I learned to enjoy working with Almin's teachings, so that these qualities within me can begin to express for what they are at any particular moment.
Yes, very much so. I do question the word enjoy, because, and I say that with deep respect, because at times it doesn't feel like I'm enjoying it at all. And in fact, I probably feel quite resistant at certain points in time. But it's obviously my way of working through things. But yes, I agree with you on that one, Paul.
But I think the paradox there, Michelle, definitely is that, we are made to do the work that we need to do, not what we always want to do.
And there it is. We are made to do the work that we need to do. So whatever it is in a person's individual life, because we're just so unique and the way that we express ourselves is so different, I think it is important to recognize and be aware of the fact that however you're feeling is your way of dealing with this, learning this new concept, embracing it, and beginning to live the principle on a more practical level. Because to actually take complete and utter responsibility for your life is a challenge, because up until now, we've always been able to blame something. Our parents, the economy, we've always looked outside of ourselves. So it's very different to actually be looking inside of yourself and knowing that you are 100% responsible for everything that happens to you in your life, even the person that shouts and screams at you for no reason at all.
No, I get that as well. But I think this is what I've been seeing in the street children, because there has been for me this year a great deal of anger rising up within me, because honestly, economically, in a country of our hugeness and stature and size, there is absolutely no need for this particular poverty. And so then I had to start turning and look around within myself as to where the poverty lies within the inner child, and look for those moments of self-pity, look for those moments of hunger where I'm not nurturing myself, and then try and work through all of that. Because when I can say, there's no need for it, well, there is. It's happening. It is definitely there. Otherwise, I would not be able to see it or perceive it.
And I think it's also about us looking at our issues of abandonment. And because a street child is a very abandoned type of person, so what's it in you? And I know that for me, even now as we're going into Christmas and I find myself in this very different situation, I'm actually about to live one of my worst nightmares that I had at the age of 16 years old, and that was being on my own over the festive season. So somehow I've been brought to the stage of actually having to face my biggest fear, and within that is a level of abandonment. And I'm embracing the situation. I'm very aware of it, so I'm working with it very, very consciously. And there's a part of me that's really embracing the fact that I can learn this, that I can get through it, and I can come through on the other side, because I know I'm going to be okay. And within that abandonment, I've also had to realize this year that this is that in actual fact I'm never alone. It's not about other people, but it is about belonging to different realms of existence.
Right.
And that we don't really need to be alone at all. So yes, it is interesting, and the street children definitely do reflect quite a lot of what we might be going through right now.
Really huge, and so pertinent to the work and discussions we've all had on the show this year, over the whole year, about the inner child and working through all of that. And I'm just feeling we're really coming to an end of the line with the inner child now. And as it heals and begins to merge with the rest of the family, then the self-sovereignty, which you mentioned earlier, then comes, online.
Yes. And Paul, you mentioned that a little while ago when I was telling you about how well my son Richard is doing overseas, and you still said something along the lines, so the inner child is becoming a young, responsible adult. And that made me look quite a lot at myself internally in terms of my inner child. And so I was very aware of that statement, and I've been looking at my inner child and thinking to myself, so is my inner child becoming the young, responsible adult. And it's not very clear to me yet, but I think I'm on some sort of journey in terms of that. And yes, I think that there does feel to be an ending of the inner child, and that there's growth, that there's that transmutation or that transformation into the young responsible adult.
Wow, really, and we can see what lies ahead for us in terms of some of the work and the doors that open. They're absolutely magnificent.
Yes, it is.
Michelle, thank you so much for sharing with us this evening and being on the show today. And thank you for being part of the team for the whole year and being on the shows that you have been on this year. We've really enjoyed the discussions, and we're looking forward to beginning again next year together.
Absolutely, Paul. And let me thank you and Nico as well, and all the listeners out there, that it really has been wonderful to be on the radio show. I'm sorry I'm not there in person tonight, but the traffic actually really caught me unawares. So all the very, very best to you and to all our listeners over this festive season. Take care.
Thank you, Michelle, and the same to you, and we'll chat off air in a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
And that was the Grandmaster Healer, Michelle, member of Team Belvaspatar South Africa, discussing with us what she's experienced and learnt in the year that has lay beyond us. And remember that as we started off, the mantra of the day was, within each moment, the power of the ages is stored. Celebrate the moment, for it is the culmination of all that has gone before. I'm always in absolute awe at the hugeness of the work that everybody is doing on the Masavas, and it really I look at it and I'm just profoundly in awe as to those particular experiences. So thank you to everyone for those inspirations. So just a little bit about the New Year's Eve 2016 Almeen Party, as we sometimes call it. It's entitled Life-Changing Power, and there's an invitation now up on Almeen Diary that we invite you to join us for our New Year's Eve event. It'll start at 10:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the 31st of December, and light workers from around the world will gather for this online event that has become a holiday tradition for our global light family. We'll be sharing the following experiences. All participants will receive the free gift of the 8th and most powerful set of runes, which has just been newly received by Almeen. To be released for sale at midnight, the original audio recordings of the Seer Almeen sharing the information of her travels to the future she undertook in August 2016, entitled Messages of Hope from the Future. They'll also be able to experience an audio-visual presentation by Almeen of the 384 mantras that will be accompanying the new time map beginning on the 28th of January. That's the new cosmic year, the 28th of January next year. And at midnight, the Seer Almeen will deliver a message to her light family about the important role they will be playing in the unfolding of a resurrected reality on Earth. So join us for this not-to-be-missed event of life-changing power. And the greeting from Team Almeen and Almeen, may your holidays be filled with great peace and deep satisfaction from the support team of Spiritual Journeys. So we'd like to just play a short audio that our fellow team member Diana has also sent us to say goodbye, and she wants to talk a little bit about what she has learned and working with, and that came in yesterday. So let's listen to that and listen to the alignment and synchronicity of today's cosmic mantra that goes with that.
Good evening, Paul, Michelle, and all our listeners out there, both local and overseas. As I look at this moment and all the moments that have cultivated in this moment, I can say how I feel and what I know simply for today. And that is, I feel gratitude for all the insights. I feel joy at the prospect of an ongoing eternal walk. I feel comfort at the candles along the way, the ones that I have lit, and those who were lit by others, and knowing ultimately that they are the same. I recognize the shades of sadness against the pale blue and saffron sky, and I know the illusion of separateness whilst feeling the panic left by the debris of that illusion. I know that praise, love, gratitude, and surrendered trust are the pearls on a string worn by the infinite, birthed by infinite intent, and that for today is enough. And so I bid you farewell until 2017. Good night.
And that was an audio goodbye from Diane, Grandmaster Healer, wonderful artist and teacher. And if you'd like to find out a little bit more about the members of Team Belvaspatar South Africa, please go and visit us on our website on belvaspatar.co.za. On our team page, there are audio greetings there and audio information about each one of us as we introduce our interest in the teachings of the Seer Almin through the healing modality of Belvaspatar. So now we have the beautiful new song that we're going to introduce. No one's ever heard it before. It is a song by the Grandmaster Healer and Master Musician and the great vocalist Nico. He's on our sound desk. Nobody really ever hears from him because he's always behind the silver screen here. He's always behind the window in the sound room from the studio. But he does a magnificent job, and we just like to allow you to listen to this song that he has written and listen to the absolute beauty of it. Please understand that the track has been recorded raw. It has not yet been mastered, but besides that, you'll be able to hear it. So for our local listeners, it's Straatkind. It's a tribute to the street children of our country, and for our listeners in the Northern Hemisphere or those that do not understand the Afrikaans language, it is translated into the word street child, but I'm sure that you will be able to feel the incredible raw emotion and beauty as he sings Straatkind.
Je oë is doof, je hande vol stof, je loop alleen deur die straat. Soek na antwoorde, soek na waarheid, te voel jy so verlaat. Mense kom, gaan voorbij, 'n glimlach wat vinnig verdwyn. Jou hande is uit en jy word uitgesluit, geen waarde word geheg. Jy's 'n straatkind sonder 'n huis, geen liefde wat jy kan wys. Soek na warmte hier, dag om net te vier. Jare voel jy alleen, waar gaan jy dan hier? Niemand om jou te troos, straatkind so moedeloos. So gaan die dag vinnig verby, jy wonder waar jy gaan bly. Die straat is jou huis, is bang om te wys jou vrese en jou pyn. Jy soek na liefde, 'n helpende hand, maar almal draai ander kant. Nog altyd bly jy die straat se kind en niemand wat jou kon vind. Want jy's 'n straatkind sonder 'n huis, liefde wat jy kan wys. Jy soek na warmte hier, 'n dag om net te vier. Jare voel jy alleen, waar gaan jy dan hier? Niemand om jou te troos, 'n straatkind so moedeloos. Wanneer jy's 'n straatkind sonder 'n huis, liefde wat jy kan wys. Jy soek na warmte hier, 'n dag om net te vier. Jare voel jy alleen, waar gaan jy dan hier? Niemand om jou te troos, straatkind so moedeloos. Vir jare voel jy alleen, waar gaan jy dan hier?
And that was the master musician and vocalist Nico G singing his new song Straatkind, which he wrote this week, and you have had the privilege of listening to it for the first time ever. And for those in South Africa who speak the Afrikaans language, you'll know exactly what that means and how it aligns with the perfection of what we were saying earlier about the street children, about the hopelessness, about the looks in the eyes, about the homelessness that they have, and the identities that are needed. Absolutely incredible synchronicity from him over there. So thank you for listening to all of that, and we look forward to more tracks from Nico being released on an album which will be coming out next year. So we've come to the end of our show. This is the last episode, as we said, for the year. So we'll be closing off. We'll only be back in mid-January 2017. And by then, so much more will have transpired. So many more experiences will have come to the fore. I'd like to just say thank you to my team members, to Michelle, to Diane, to Nico for always being there. And I'd like to say thank you to each one of our listeners who join us each and every week without fail. I'd like to say thank you for the comments that you make. I'd like to say thank you in gratitude for the emails that you send, for the support that you give to us, and the sheer love that you shine out. And we hope that you have been inspired. The last 2 months we have worked on a program to send messages of inspiration to you, to keep you all focused on creating new realities for yourself and not to bite in that which is no longer able to work in the worlds that we are now creating between ourselves. Please remember, you're a master creator, you're a master being, you're a resurrected and immortal being, and you just live in the truth of those experiences and keep your eyes focused on what reality is in front of you, and then begin to dissolve it so that something new can then come up. We're going to sign out now, but I'd just like to sign off with one last comment by Almin. And I think that this is our New Year gift. It is our festive season gift. And it explains so much, because it says, in the gratitude of your heart for the bounty of the earth are the channels of generosity and reciprocity unlocked. It is then that earth becomes your ally. And this is principle number 7, to live in happiness with the earth. From the mystic and seer Almin. From Benoni, near Johannesburg, South Africa, this is Radio Belvaspata, South Africa, signing out for the last time in 2016, and looking forward to meeting you again in January 2017. Thank you very much. Please stay tuned. Please listen to our broadcast. Please send us your messages. Join us on Facebook. Join us on Instagram. Connect with us through our website, belvaspata.co.za. Until we see you again, may each one of us and you all live in the beautiful, eternal, essential qualities and attitudes of love, of gratitude, of praise, and surrendered trust. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. Thank you for listening and sharing in our discussion. Should you have any questions with regards to the healing modality of Belvaspata, or have any healing needs, please send us an email to info@belvaspata.co.za or add comments to our page on Spreaker.com so we can work on providing a suitable response. We now close this episode with the eternal essential qualities of love, praise, gratitude, and trust, and look forward to sharing again with you next week. Goodbye.